as a foreground. I should just say everything, we are all what we eat. And it's important, therefore, to understand the interaction between food and nutrition. That every time when we fall ill, for us to respond to any drugs that you are taking, for any problem that you have to be eating properly. Because what we eat will impact on the way drugs are metabolized and the safety of those drugs, and also the therapeutic effectiveness of those drugs. I'm glad I'm speaking soon after somebody has been talking about black pepper, but I'm hoping that you're not going to go out there and say, if you're full of anxiety, you're going to eat a lot of black pepper. Because you have to be eating well, ladies and gentlemen, because if you don't eat well, it doesn't matter how many drugs you can pump into me. It's like washing your hands in very clean water and then drying them with a dirty towel. When you talk about food and nutrition, surely when you look at that slide, you can see when we talk about nutritional processes, that is actually basically pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics. So really, the way drugs are dealt with by our body, or what drugs do in our body, is just like what's happening in nutrition. So there is interdependence between drug pharmacokinetics and nutritional processes. Having said that, you would then wonder, what then is a nutrient? But I think some people think a nutrient is something that goes all over the body, and there is no particular target. A drug is something that's got a target. But there are situations where we use nutrients as drugs. For example, certain forms of schizophrenia, you can use different types of vitamin B12, B12. And now, as a routine, pregnant women are given folic acid and cobalamin to prevent spina bifida. So, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because now people are now talking about pharma foods. I mean, we just heard about, Pepper's Nigram. You will not be surprised tomorrow to see it on the market. Everybody's talking about pharma foods, superfoods, brilliant Brussels sprouts, and technology is also being harnessed in order to incorporate genomics when you're preparing, certain things that people have to eat. So you now talk about pharma foods, nutraceuticals, and so forth and so on. And as we speak today, Monsanto has become part and parcel of Bayer. You were talking about big pharma, but Monsanto today is now part of Bayer because they now realize that we can use food as medicines. So there are some people, when we look at the clinical trials, now if you take what was being talked about earlier on, and if it was taken into a clinical situation, you're not going to get very good results. So as a result of that, a lot of people think when you talk about nutritional pharmacology, is it an oxymoron? I say it isn't, because of what I've just said. Because there's no difference between a nutrient and a drug as far as I am concerned. So we have a problem that now a lot of these nutrient or nutritional products are now on the market. What is the situation in Africa? How are the regulatory authorities dealing with, for example, if black pepper was to come onto the market and being promoted for anxiety, for example? We carried out a study to just look at what exactly is happening on the African continent in order to see whether African countries how many African countries have got national medicine regulatory authorities. Natural products, pharma foods, and drugs, there's no difference. We need organizations that look at the clinical trials. Soon after all these laboratory investigations are done, we need people who can actually sit down and say, well, this can be on our market. And then we need to know how those national medicine regulatory authorities in Africa, what kind of strategies do they have in order to deal with any problems that may arise with natural products, pharma foods, nutritional products, or drugs that are on the market. We looked at the African continent, And then we found that a lot of countries in Africa do have national medicine regulatory authority, or DRAs, drug regulatory authorities. But a lot of them are not working very well because they are inadequate staff. When we talk about inadequate staff, what are we talking about? We're talking about people who can actually then look at a dossier. If, for example, I must go back to the black pepper. If black pepper is now put on the market and clinical trials have been done with black pepper, so it's a very good drug for anxiety, who is going to be able to analyze the data? We don't have that. We're finding out that in the meantime, nutrition, for example, is not a special topic in medical or pharmacy students. Neither is pharmacology a special subject that is taught to nutritionists. So we have a problem in Africa. For example, when these natural products are now on the market, pharma foods are now on the market, we don't have people who can analyze the dossiers. We will rely on whether the product has been accepted on the American market. We rely on whether the product has been accepted on the French market. We need, therefore, to train our students in nutrigenomics so that they can understand the relationship between nutrition and pharmacology. And eventually, nutrigenomics will assist our students, or those who are going to be working in our national medicinal product, to link up what exactly is happening. Because I'm saying this because a lot of nutritional studies that are carried out, they've not been successful. And yet, it all depends on the genetic makeup of people that have been involved in the studies of looking at whether a nutrient is beneficial for a particular disease. So I am saying nutritional pharmacology is not an oxymoron. We need nutrition to be taught to our pharmacy students. We need nutrition to be taught to our medical students. There are about 100 pharmacy schools on the African continent, and almost 80% and almost 80 medical schools on the African continent. But none of them deal with nutrition as a very important subject. Now it is important because of HIV. There are certain people who are not benefiting from nutritional strategies that are being used to treat and manage HIV. As you know, HIV is a problem which really impacts on macronutrient deficiencies and so forth and so on. So we need to make sure that at least we are trained, or we have got our students who are being trained in pharmacology and nutrition, so that we can move forward and to deal with the fact that, see, a lot of people think, no, don't talk about nutritional pharmacology because it's an oxymoron. I say it isn't an oxymoron. I think it's important in as far as we are concerned on the African continent. I rest my case.